welcome to France. Really pleased to talk to you. Your love story with France is a long time history. Is it true?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was the first concert we played here was a New Morning, wasn't it? Or, well, actually,
yeah.
no. It's actually,
it was,
yeah. No, we played a pub
in Cherbourg.
In Cherbourg, yeah. But people don't know this, but before we had a record deal or anything, we came to Cherbourg and played in a small pub, and there was like maybe 15 people there who quite liked us, and so that was our first experience of France. And then but then basically we started touring around England when we first got a record deal, and France was the first place, obviously, because it's quite close, and that we came to. We came to Paris to play New Morning, and the response was very surprising, because it seemed like people knew us very well, and we were very surprised, because at that time it seemed like people were more excited by the music in France than England at the time, so that kind of inspired us to want to tour here, and also to tour in the rest of Europe, So from a very early stage for us, we were very keen to tour in France and other European countries, I think, and I think this is one of the reasons why, through time, we've managed to build a sort of good fan base here,
Do you know why the French audience is so the response is so good? Is it because we are attracted by your lyrics, your sound, your attitude? You don't know?
I don't know. I think maybe I'm not sure. I'm not too familiar with how the French people absorb their music and how they find their music. I mean, in England, the press is very dominant, in terms of bringing new bands into the public, And I think that maybe in France, people when we made the first album didn't really care too much about what the enemy says or what the melody maker says in England. I think they were just kind of it just seemed like it was
quite organic, really.
Yeah.
It kind of seemed like it was a bit word of mouth. It seemed like a few people, the word spread, and people told their friends, and more people got to know about us, and I think it definitely kind of, after people saw us live, that seemed to be a very a kind of fundamental thing for people to maybe tell their friends, and more people to come back next time. And I suppose that's what we've always been about. Ultimately, is playing live, and I think that's certainly how it's expanded. Like doing shows.
And there's always been like a kind of slightly a slight interest in I suppose classical music or something, or old music that is in something we do a little bit, and this is obviously the history of great music is mainly European, people like Chopin or Berlioz from France, but also most of the great composers of music are from Europe, and I think that we've always been very in love with some of this music, so I think maybe that's another reason.
Your last album started with a kind of repetitive leitmotif, which sounds like Steve Reich or Philip Glass leitmotif. Have you been exposed to that kind of experience?
Yes. I think I was. My main interest was always music from around the 19th century to the beginning of the 20th century, like Rachmaninoff and earlier than that with Berlioz, Chopin. That's kind of romantic sort of period, very emotional music. But I started listening to some more modern things, like Philip Glass, Steve Reich, and more experimental people, and I think that obviously had an influence on songs like Take a Bow.
And for this album, you tried to experiment with grooves. It's groovier than the previous one. Have you been into funk? Have you been into Sly and the Family Stones things?
We were listening to a bit of
Sly and the Family Stone.
Sly and the Family Stone, and a little bit of Funkadelic in the
Family
studio.
Affair, that album, Family Affair. Yeah.
That's I think we experimented a bit more with kind of programming things in the studio, programming rhythms, which is something we'd not really done so much of in the past. I think quite a few songs really were based around, or kind of grew from messing around with more kind of electronic instruments, whether it be drum machines or like lots of synthesizers, which again was very different for us to do. But some of that stuff, came out of just hanging out in New York. because we went to record. We started in France and went to New York, and just being in New York was a very different environment from France. So we were kind of going out at night to clubs and absorbing the city and hanging out because it's a cool town, and then recording in the daytime. And I think just some of the clubs that we were like sitting around in, drinking, you know, listening to bits of, don't even know what it was, bits of R&B, just, you know, kind of more, I guess, electronic orientated music, but which is more orientated for people dancing on a dance floor. Just that, whatever that was, that vibe definitely had a bit of an impact on the music, and it changed the way we thought about grooves and drum beats and things like that. And a lot of that changed in New York. You know, it was quite different in France, but when we got there and had a slightly different influence and perspective on the music.
It doesn't sound programmed at all. So do you think you succeed in crafting your own identity, which is a bit organic and maybe electronic, but in a subtle way?
Yeah, I've always been interested in that area in the middle, where it's sort of half organic, half electronic. I think I like that. I like that area.
It's a fine line, I think, mixing any kind of genres, different genres of music. It's a very fine line of it being terrible, or if you get it right, it could be really great. And I think we touched on that fine line a little bit with on previous albums, with like the incorporation of, you know, pianos and lots of kind of piano music influenced by very historic music, and bringing that into maybe, you know, a kind of rock genre or arena. And again, just mixing different genres is quite it's a sticky thing. You know, you've got to be careful. But I think we touched on it within that area. So I think on this album, you know, we morphed a few genres of music together successfully, I think.
Yeah, I think every song we try and keep. We always try and keep a character of the three people in the band. You know, like as I think every song needs to. I think to be successful in moving around different genres. I think so long as each of the people in the band is playing their instrument, you know, then it works. You know, I think the danger is if you go into electronic music. If you're in a rock band, you go into electronic music, and you have no, you know, it's all just electronic, and where's the drummer? You know, the drummer's disappeared. You know, but I think all of the songs which have electronic elements actually have real drums playing, either being sampled or playing with them. And I think that's kind of one of the keys to making it work within a rock band. You know?
How about the Oriental flavour that you can hear on the album? Have you been exposed to Turkish music or Middle East things?
Yeah, a little bit. There was we were listening to some internet radio from the Middle East and from the Far East. Some kind of just, you know, I didn't understand anything they were saying. It was all foreign, you know. But the music was some of the music was very, very unusual and very. I think it's a good thing with internet radios. You can listen to radio stations from the other side of the world, which is good. But I think there was a guy called Mauro Pagani who we recorded in his studio. The last three songs of the album, well, around that time, finishing the album, we were recording in his studio, and he's a violin player who's was Italian, and he introduced me to music from the south of Italy, and he was explaining to me how some of this music was influenced by Turkey and by North Africa and Croatia and some of these surrounding areas that has this kind of slight connection to music from the Middle East, maybe. And I think we introduced that onto mainly onto City of Delusion. I think that song with the string arrangements, and also the last song, Nice Sidonia, has got a little bit of Ennio Morricone kind of style, you know.